There we go.
All right. Hello, everybody, and Happy New Year. We've got all our smiling faces and Terry's. And shots fired.
First one of the new year, right over the bow.
There you go. So, how's everybody's holiday going? I know that Steve had a lengthy vacation.
Yeah. You were a funny, funny man. I was supposed to have a lengthy vacation. Out of the 9 days, I got actually one. So, yay me.
I didn't even get one, really. I probably got one if you spread an hour or so per day across the week, but
That doesn't feel very vacation-y.
oh well.
So, have you guys noticed that Bing has announced they're going to add Chat GPT right to their search engine?
Yeah.
Should be interesting.
I wonder if it's enough to get people to switch.
There will be a lot of people interested and they'll have a look and play around with it. But that's the majority of people are on using Google to do bits and pieces. And I imagine what it will do is force the hand of Google to do something rather than sit back and wait and see. Right. So U.com, an upstart search engine, has already got an AI section in it and it has done for about a month now. That's quite interesting.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting as well, the way they implemented it.
I was, for a moment there, I'm thinking, well, maybe they're going to bring back Ms. Dewey, empower her with the open AI and or the Chat GPT and make it a little more fun.
You can ask.
I haven't even played with it yet. I have no interest. My interest is I'd see an awful lot of content folks, agencies that have told their writers, if you send me something that detects as AI, you will no longer write for us. And yet they're still getting positive kickbacks, and then they start doing searches and they find entire paragraphs have been showing up for similar topics for other locations. I mean, it's obviously they're using GPT-3 or, Chat AI or something. I'm going to protect against that. I just don't think this thing is at a stage yet where it's at all reliable. It may get there, but in the meantime, I don't want any part of it.
But there are more and more detectors coming out. I've seen a list of 10 that somebody's checked through and tested against bits and pieces. I can see that happening more in the future. There was a plugin, a Chrome plugin that I saw today that's come out, or it's come out today, where you can bang it on a page and it'll tell you what it thinks. I checked a couple of my pages. One I'd written a couple of years ago, which is no AI in it at all, got 100% original. And the other one on a site where I'm testing AI stuff, which is 100% AI written, it said, I think it was 67% AI. So that says to me at the moment, yes, you can spin stuff up out of an AI, but you need to rewrite it. And that's the thing. I've started using it for suggesting things like headings and titles and metadata. But then I've got a nice list of 10 things. All right, that gives me a good prompt to speed up my work and say, right, I'll use that one, but I'll change a few words, etc. I don't think that any system could detect a page title or a meta description being AI written, because it's a summary of the page. It's very good at doing that. But for long form text, no.
I think it has some value for research purposes, sure, but not to generate copy. Sorry.
Depends what kind of copy you're talking about.
Well,
If you're talking about full-length articles, no. But if you're
No.
talking about ads, oh yeah, for sure.
okay, I'll buy that. And I do think, the idea has occurred to me that you might even use it to look at a page, give me a meta description for this page using this key phrase. That might be a handy application.
Title and meta description.
Right.
Probably handle those easily.
Yeah. But, we always tend to abuse things and overuse them.
No.
Marketers ruin everything, as Gary Vee says.
One interesting use I've seen of it, and I've started to use myself, is writing schema for a page.
Oh, yeah.
Brilliant.
Or scripts, snippets.
See, the
code
difference
snippets, yeah.
there is the training set is static, so it's very easy to write for it to, take that, static training set and do stuff with it.
It saves me a lot of time because I don't then have to go and check and make sure I've got the commas in the right place and there's nothing missing. I don't have to go and test it because all I normally do is write the script and then test it and see what I've done wrong. And it's just something as simple as a comma missing will, in effect, make it not work, that schema. So if you've got a script, or rather an AI that can write it for you, so I want this, and it, think, there you go, thank you, cut, paste, off you go. That, to me, is a really good use of using a tool like that. And I would expect, maybe if we look at this again in 2-3 years' time, that there will be plugins for CMSs that just automatically do it. You write some content out, press a button, and it just, thank you very much. There's your schema, there's your title, there's your metadata, and do it all for you. And everybody will be blogging at that point. They'll all left Twitter. They'll all be blogging because it just does it all for you.
I could see it as a plugin for WordPress where you're using it to get certain information to start a page and then you write around that. I think it'd be useful for that.
What
Write
do you
me
mean
an
by
outline
starting?
for an
What do you
article
mean
about
by
this.
starting a page, Terry?
Have it write just the outline.
Yeah.
Oh, the outline, yeah.
That's what I start with a bunch of headings of the topics I
The
want to
heading
cover,
for the
and then I
topic,
fill
right.
in around it, right? So, you could do that with Chat GPT, fairly simple or whatever it's called. Maybe it's GPT chat, I don't know.
I'm
But,
wondering if this is going to be a somewhat of a flash in the pan where the novelty is going to wear off and use is going to.
No.
I think it's probably somebody's going to find a way to really step it ahead, leaps and bounds in terms of development, and turn it back on. But I think right now there's an awful lot of novelty amongst marketers and bloggers and whatnot that's probably going to fade somewhat. At least I hope it does.
Here, I see it as it's going to hurt our business somewhat. If you write content, I'd be looking for another job.
Well, I started looking for another job 5 years ago. So.
That's what I mean. It was bad then because there are so many of them already, and there's going to be less work as a result of these programs because people, SEOs, make their money off of automation. Automating processes is how we actually make the most money from our time. It's because we don't actually sell SEO, we sell our time. So to me, that's how it's going to affect our business. It's not going to end it because people don't want they don't want an answer to a specific question. They'll always want a bunch of places to go and look at. I can't see it replacing search engines. Just
no, I don't see it replacing search engines. I think I feel like it's likely to lose a little bit of the shine sometime relatively soon amongst bloggers and especially the newbie SEOs and marketers that don't have a lot of experience or knowledge yet, because they're going to see that this could really be a great thing and then realize that if Google wasn't hammering the hell out of everybody they detected on, I'm going to stop using it. I think that's likely to happen to some degree, but it's going to get better.
Well,
I
if you
don't think.
if you don't think that Google can detect AI,
Well, there's still an awful lot of
you're
people out there.
living in a pretty. You should come out from underneath your rock.
I could point at a half a dozen prominent names that could swear up and down that Google cannot detect link farms. So,
Yeah, they're all crying in their beer today, aren't they?
A very expensive beer.
Yeah. Well, it didn't cost them nothing. It cost their clients a lot of money.
Yep.
And that's what's really bad about that kind of stuff. I have respect for guys like Steve, who, they're not going to kill a customer's business because they know where that line in the sand is and they don't cross it. Other people just don't know enough to be doing what they're doing. And what's really happening is links are going to become less and less important. I don't think they're that important now, unless there's a lot of competition in the query.
Well, and that's an interesting point that I know an awful lot of our colleagues would argue against. But I really do think that links have become a very minor factor.
Okay, here's an example. I wrote a post on semantic SEO audits. I posted it within 24 hours. It was #1 and it's still there. Why? Because it was unique content written by somebody who knows something. And all the other posts were kind of about SEO audits and kind of about semantic rankings with semantic SEO, but nothing was specifically on that topic. Mine was the only one in the results that was just about a semantic SEO audit. I bet you I'll always be there because I was the first guy to write about it.
Until some copycat comes along and
read Bill and I, or before he passed, him and I spoke hours about original content, unique content, and authors. And I'm convinced that they know who wrote what, when it was wrote, and what people are experts in.
Yeah, I buy that.
And that's what the classification of sites is all about.
Well, I think, in a lot of ways, they're capable of a lot more things than most digital marketers know or believe or understand,
Well, they have to believe they're stupid because they're doing stupid things.
Well, that too.
That's the thing. If you really understood how good Google is at what it does, you would not even attempt spam because it would not work for very long.
Well, and I understand the point of view. A lot of them say it. I know it's not going to last, but it will give me a burst, and I'm happy with that because I'll kill this site and go start new one and do it again and stay on top of a wave by duplicating the effort over and over and over and over again elsewhere. There's some validity to that, but at some point, they got to realize too, Google is going to realize that this IP address or this registrant or, somewhere along the line is the same guy that's been doing this 17 times over the last quarter.
Yeah.
And they're going to start hammering you in advance. You're going to be branded.
The last Raiders guideline said not to look at publishers, but to look at who is behind that publisher.
Mm-hmm.
So they've caught on to that. Now, here's what I have to say about we can just make another site. That's fine for an affiliate marketer. But if you've got a brick and mortar business or a real business, you can't do that.
Yeah. And especially now because, Steve has been fighting a couple of uphill battles recently the Google My Business, now business profile, has just become extremely difficult and cumbersome process to get verified. So yeah, if you're brick and mortar, I think you can effectively say forget about it now. Even if you're legit, the first time, if you start a brand new business in a brick and mortar front tomorrow, you better hire a videographer, because that's the only way you're going to get verified.
Yeah,
You got to rent the building, put a sign on the front, show customers coming in and out the door. Good Lord, it's just gotten extremely difficult. And I understand the why, because there was an awful lot of misrepresentation out there. I may or may not have been guilty of that myself on occasion.
Then why don't you close down that, the guy who calls his business dentist near me? Really? Come on.
But that's the sign on the building. The sign on the building is dentist near me. Yeah. I mean, no, I get confused by Google, because it's like, well, we want to do all of this. And it's like, great. You do understand that there are like a whole lot of different types of businesses that you guys haven't even thought of.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I mean, look how many years we fought to get them to allow real estate agents and doctors to share an address. Like, nope, one business per address. But that's not realistic. Hell, I got 3 businesses here in my own in my home address.
Well, and look at the battle that Terry has fought with the shared office space.
Yeah.
That's still an uphill battle.
Yeah, well, they don't even really know what a virtual office is. They don't know the difference between a shared office, where you're an office where you're renting a desk,
Yeah,
and a virtual thing where it's all, there's no thing. But even the virtual office has a desk that you could go up and ask for that company at that desk,
Yeah.
and they would be able to get you in touch with them. And that's why I never understood, how they differentiated between a virtual business in an office center and, a post office box, because that's what they were basically saying, is they were the same thing.
I suspect it's just a rabbit hole they don't care to get into.
the problem is, I think now with their purchase of Waze, they're going to be much more maps specific for business profiles, where if we can't pull up your business on maps and go to it, then you don't get a profile. Which is probably what's going to happen in the future, which is going to eliminate all of the work from home and shared office and virtual. I mean, there's nothing wrong with having a business and running it out of a virtual office.
Shared office and virtual offices were around decades before Google was even here and recognized as a legitimate way to do business.
Right.
Yeah.
And then what's funny is you get to talk to some of these Google reps, and they're like, well, we're only going to approve your listing if you have permanent signage, not vinyl letters on the door, permanent signage on the outside of the building. And you go, it's a freaking skyscraper. What? How am I supposed to get my name on the outside of Trump Tower? You think he's going to take his name down so I can put mine on there?
Oh, they said that, Steve.
I have seen so many of these get rejected for such stupid reasons. There was one, they even wanted the guy to take his phone while doing the live video and log into his website to prove that he had control of the website. It's like, no, I am not going to log into my website while you're watching. I don't care.
And I've been thinking for a while, and I'm pleasantly surprised it hasn't happened yet, that at some point, if you want a business profile, you're going to have to show them a verifiable business license.
Yeah.
Or you're not a business entity, therefore you're not going to get a profile.
Well, that would be more appropriate than what they're doing right now.
Except in a lot of states, and actually most states in the United States, you can be a sole proprietor without a business license.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't think you.
It only becomes an issue if you collect sales tax.
Yeah.
Okay.
And in states that don't collect sales tax, like a lot of them on services, and you're a service oriented business, you don't even need that. It's you wind up being a DBA at your bank. It's like, Steve doing business as, and that's all the further you have to go with it. And you fill out your normal tax paperwork like you would any other thing. You just file a Schedule C along with it.
Mhm.
Yeah, I've only seen two things where there wasn't GST in Canada. One is bank fees are not called, they aren't services. Like, why do they get a special deal? And
Yeah. Because they helped write the law.
that's the only one that I've seen. It could be before that I didn't have to charge GST if an American was getting services from me.
Right.
But every company that I do business with in the US that does not charge me GST, the Canadian government eventually contacts them all and say, yeah, it's time to pay up. Just because you didn't collect it doesn't mean you don't owe it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, bad on you, right?
Microsoft was the first one that got caught. GoDaddy is in that. And GoDaddy tried 3, 4, at least 5 different ways to get around it, even charge taxes where they weren't, supposed to. They were charging me California frickin' taxes, and I live in Ontario. It was because the office they were working out of was in California. Even though I logged into GoDaddy.ca on purpose for that reason. Because if I don't pay the GST, the government's saying, well, why aren't you paying GST to them? They're supposed to be charging you. I got actually audited because of bullshit like that. I have to give my revenue in Canadian and American.
Mm. One of the things I noticed, I have my courses are at Teachable, and Teachable handles all the tax collecting and reporting and paying, which I just find absolutely wonderful because they collect the money and then they give the money to whoever is using their service, like me, for instance. And one of the things I discovered, this was, I don't know, maybe a year ago, I was researching alternative, teaching platforms, course platforms, all that kind of stuff. And they were telling me how wonderful and clever they were and how, pretty and blah, blah, blah. And I said, what about the taxes? What do you do with, I'm not sure it's called VAT, but whatever it's called, VAT in Germany? Because I have a student in Germany, right? And I have students in the UK, and they're like, oh, well, you would charge a tax. And I was like, oh, no, I'm not in business to be collecting and keeping track of and paying international taxes. I don't even want to think about it. I don't want to think about it.
Yeah.
But I know that a lot of those teaching platforms don't deal with it at all. So I think at some point in time, some of those people are going to be.
Yeah, it's going to come back and bite them eventually.
It's going to come back and bite them. And because you can't have international students, or even, like I live in a state where there are no state taxes, right? But people in other states have taxes. So I don't want to be in that kind of position at all. But it is going to come back and bite them, Doc, because it's a can of worms.
Well, I saw an article, I think in the New Yorker a couple months ago, from this guy who was medically retired from the IRS. He had a bad stroke or so. He took early retirement. Anyway, he said that the issue is what people are not realizing, that with the internet, there's been such a migration to online businesses. We know that it's creating labor shortages at certain levels of operations for some companies. But what they're not thinking about is the impact this has had, that most of these people that are carrying on business online are not businesses. They're not taxing what they should be taxing. So a lot of them are not even claiming the income if they've found a way to hide it. And it's had a tremendous impact on the revenue that's going into the IRS. So if you think that they're not actively and eagerly, voraciously looking for a way to recapture that, you're in for a rude awakening, because they will find a way.
Yeah,
And
and
again,
it's not just the IRS.
No.
Every taxing body in each country, they all want their money.
And in some states, it's not just the state, it's also the county, it's also the municipality,
Yeah.
So, there's an awful lot of money that is slipping through people's fingers, and they're all trying to figure out a way to capture it. It's, to a great degree, I think a lot of folks are on borrowed time. And if you're playing really close to the hairy edge of legal, get your affairs in order.
Yeah, I think that's really true. And I think about all these, people who just to go on with this courses and group coaching kind of stuff. There's people who do the group coaching, mindfulness and life coaching and all that kind of thing. They are not thinking about taxes. They're thinking about, how can I make this pretty so people will come and pay me money to be in my group coaching session.
Well, that's one of the things, in the United States, I think most people have the opinion that if I'm not delivering a hard product, I don't need to collect sales tax. I've even heard some people say that if I'm only delivering a digital product, let's say it's a program and you do a download, that's not taxable. I'm sorry, folks. You need to wake up and smell the coffee here. Yeah, that's a product. But a lot of folks have the attitude that if they're delivering their knowledge let's say as a consultant, that is a service. And what I saw a recent ruling written up from the IRS that they said, okay, if you're selling a package that includes consulting and let's say training, I think it was about training for up to 30 employees for up to 20 hours per week for 3 months, that is no longer a service. That is a product because you call it a package and it's defined. And that, well, I'll tell you what, I know one guy that he owns a relatively large consulting firm that does in-house training for large corporations who probably does upwards of $10 million a year. And he has always considered it to be a service. And they're sold as packages. And he doesn't care. Because he figured he'll be dead before they can ever get him into court, So.
Wow.
So, I guess there is a hidden benefit to getting old.
Online
It's kind of a high price to pay, though.
Online is tricky because you could be in say, like when I first came online and looked at taxes, anything I sold online was not taxable.
Mm-hmm.
And we've always had GST here. That's how it started. Then they said, okay, you have to start charging GST. And now they're going after US-based companies selling to Canadians, even though their server isn't in Canada. They're going after them because they said, and one of the biggest reasons that I found that a person selling or a vendor selling stuff from the States into Canada online wouldn't do it was because of the problems crossing the border, getting the package across border. Because if you didn't charge the GST, there's like a surcharge they put on automatically to cover it.
Oh, at the border.
Yeah. So my solution was always, well, it costs you about $50 to get a business license in Canada that comes with a GST number. Then you can sell and charge GST in the United States. That's actually one of the best ideas I came up for the office space company, because a lot of their business was, from India and China, businesses that wanted a presence in Canada, right? So they had to have an office. So they take a virtual office and have a lawyer as a director of the company. And you could set up a lawful company in Canada. If it wasn't a limited company, you could just get a business license and go to it, $50.
Well, times are a-changing. A lot of things are going to be changing over the next year or four, so kind of wise to keep your eyes on the horizon. Speaking of horizons, go ahead, Simon.
I've got one I saw yesterday, a contact form on a site, piece of software which I've got, and I was looking at the new version of it. My one's a couple of years old. And so I thought I'd get in contact with them and see if they give it to me free, because I don't use it professionally. I use it for doing some voluntary work. And I went to the contact form, and it's got the usual stuff: first name, last name, business email, business phone, and it comes with a company revenue drop down. Small office, $0 to $24 million. SMB, $25 to $249 million. Commercial, $250 to $499 million. And enterprise, $500+ million. I thought, they're not going to give me a free anything, are they? But I've never seen it segued like that. They're obviously done that. I mean, even though there is a naught up to what's it? It's they've done it to filter out people like me asking for a free copy. So that was fine.
I've seen that. I've seen that on a lot of software as a service contact forms. Because I think we talked about that. I've talked about this before, where they want everything, including your firstborn, in order to send you the free copy of the thing, or to find out, which even worse is to find out more about our company and, our sales rep or whatever they call them, will get in touch with you. And I still feel this way. That puts those salespeople at such a disadvantage, because before you know the scope of the business and some of the details of what the service is that they're offering on the subscription basis, you have to, give them all this information in order for the salesperson to talk to you, so you can get basic information about the business, which I just think is so crazy. Tell me what you do, tell me what the service is, tell me how it improves my whatever it is that you're doing, that you're helping me, that you want me to pay a monthly or a yearly subscription. Tell me all that. Then I'm going to be, oh, this sounds like it's going to solve a problem. Then I'm going to want to talk to a salesperson to get more details about how it works, and how does it work in my particular business case, and will it really solve the problem of X, and will it solve the problem of Y, which is what the salespeople are going to tell me. But there's this gap with asking all that stuff, Simon, where it's too early to ask all that stuff.
Well, I think that somebody is showing their ignorance of basic marketing 101. You want to keep the client receptive and improve his receptiveness at every step, not throw a brick wall up in front of it. When I see a website like that, if I'm looking for a provider of some service or product, and I see a website like that they want nothing but my sign up or my email address so that they can reach out to me, I'm gone.
Mhm.
I have no desire to deal with them because there are
that's
others
gonna
out
be
there.
reflected throughout everything.
And if there's enough there that I'm receptive, then I can make an intelligent decision as to whether I want to trust them with my email address.
Yep.
I was working for a payday loan company, and their original form had 100 questions.
Jesus H.
Okay. When I finished, there was 3 questions.
There you go.
What they didn't realize is 90% of the questions you have to ask again on the phone anyhow. So, that it was just stupid stuff. I put it down to 3 qualifiers that if they answered yes to any of them, they weren't a client anyhow. So, I'd sell that to another lead place, get some money back for it and move on. But even then, I could get better click-through rates because right on my ads, everyone says, fill out a form and get an answer in 3 minutes.
I worked with a client a couple of years ago trying to help them set up with a SaaS company for a service they needed. And it took me 3 meetings before I could get them to give me a price per seat.
Jesus.
Oh,
And it's
man.
like, at the end of the 3rd meeting, I just came right out and told them, it's like, I need a price per seat. I'm done with this. Well, we still need to gather more information. No, you know what it costs per seat to sell your service. What's that number?
Yeah.
And they kept going, well, I said, we're done. We're not going to do it. We're not going to hire your company. And we weren't talking a little bit of money either. We were going to be spending $300,000 to $400,000 a year with them. I mean, and they just pissed it all away because they didn't want to give me that number. And it's like, well, every client's different. So, okay, well, that scares me. You have a SaaS, but you charge each of your clients a different amount based on their ability to pay.
There you go.
Yeah, that's what they were trying to really figure out. What was their
Call it a
ability to
sliding
pay?
scale.
Question number 17 is, how deep are your pockets?
Wow.
Well,
See, after the first meeting, I would have just said, tell me a price now, or I'm not wasting any more time with you. Because 9 times out of 10, there's not a good reason to not tell a person the price right up front.
Yep.
Well, it's like a job interview. Back when I used to, actually have a real job and was looking for a job, one of the interviewers said, so, well, what were you expecting? What price range were you looking at for your salary? And I said, well, I'm not really sure. What did you guys have set aside in your budget for pay? And they're like, what? Wait. And it's like, well, how much were you willing to pay? Because if your number is significantly lower than what I want, we're done. And if it's significantly higher, I will let you know. And they're, well, we can't tell you that. So, well, then we're done here. Because you've already set the terms of the relationship of you're going to withhold as much information as possible to get me to say yes. And I'm not going to do that. So.
Yeah, I have actually, in a job interview, I have refused to answer that question. I'm sorry.
You're hiring me, make an offer.
As much as I can get.
Yeah.
We have a Robert. Maybe that's Rob Watts.
I hope so.
We'll know as soon as we see his mug.
If it is Rob, then he's just done a very interesting little quiz. It is.
That's Robert.
Robert.
Hey, everyone.
Hey, Rob.
Rob, tell them about your quiz you've done on your website.
Oh, yes. So I have I've made this little quiz whereby on the basis of what the page is, it will pull in a place with a longitude and latitude and then ask you out of 3 towns which one is nearest. And if you get the question right, you'll get 10 points. If you get it wrong, then you'll lose a point. Or if you take the hard option, you can score even more points, and then you lose less points if you lose. But yeah, it's basically a big a database of places, and it's a little bit of SQL that says, like, take all the places that are within that region, within a radius, and output them first, kind of second, third, and then kind of jumble them up and drive people like Simon bonkers because he couldn't get.
I don't know how many I did. No, I didn't get. I think I got one right. Maybe not like that, but most of them I got second. And the places were around Kent mostly, and county that are where I grew up.
Yeah.
And I go, yeah, I know all these places. Which one is it? It's that one. No, it's not. It's like, why?
It's like,
but the nice thing is, it gives, give the answer. It gives you each one how far away they are. So lovely little quiz. I did like it. It was infuriating.
Fun. But I think it has to be made a little bit easier, Simon. I think the odd clue, so maybe throw a place like, I don't know, Timbuktu into the options, kind of narrow it down a little bit, because but hey, it's fun kind of putting it all together and see what happens. So we'll see. Yeah, I've had fun. How are you all? Are you all well?
Happy New Year. Yes.
Happy New Year, indeed. Yes.
We were just banging on
Terry,
about.
hi Steve, hi Zara, hi Doc.
Say again?
Hey, Rob.
You all well?
I am.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cold,
Made it
but
through.
goes with the time of year. At which point Terry will laugh at me, but he says, I don't know what cold is. And I have to agree. Given what you guys are living with up there, yeah, I can buy that.
Well, I don't know what it's like over there in the States and in Canada right now. But over here, we've got this crazy situation with the cost of fuel. So I got my gas bill in last month. So last year, it was something like £100, which is maybe $120 perhaps.
Yeah.
This year, month on month, it was £260.
Ooh,
So it's basically tripled almost.
that's a
I
big
couldn't
jump.
believe it.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, absolutely. Well, and it's not like I've been kind of sitting here in my underpants going, oh, let's turn the heating up, let's be nice and warm. I've been kind of frugal and aware that the cost of all that stuff has rocketed. It's just insane. But hey, there we go.
How much of that is driven by shortage?
I really don't know, Doc. Our government is blaming Vladimir Putin. My view generally is that national governments should be able to do a whole lot more, and I believe our government isn't, and I don't believe like there's lots of people over here who are making the choice between eating and heating, and I just think it's wrong. But until you have a government that's not kind of full of rich toffs, like for want of a better word, that's how it's going to be, I guess. So yeah.
Do you think it was wise to be reliant upon Putin for gas?
Well, actually, we're not.
Exactly.
I think that my impression has been that there's been an awful lot of opportunistic pricing put in place by vendors. Okay, just because, hey, great, this is going to be perceived as a shortage, we can jack up our prices.
Well, there is a shortage. There is.
It's what I call the
so many boats that can take liquefied natural gas and bring it to Europe. There's only so many.
That's true.
And they weren't prepared for it.
The particular problem we got in the UK is we were only buying about 5% of our gas needs from Russia. The problem is the rest of the gas was being supplied by all sorts of other things, and then the rest of Europe suddenly turned to that other market to get their gas because Russia wasn't giving it to them. So suddenly the big market, because I keep hearing people saying, well, what's the problem? We only got 5% of the gas from Russia. But we have got in this country a lot of other methods of generating electricity, huge amounts of wind farms. I mean, I don't know what the percentage is now of wind farm in this country, but it's big and we're still building them. We haven't even tapped into wave yet. Solar, we don't get any of that. So we've got that. You're absolutely right. The hydrogen boats, around the liquid gas boats, rather, there aren't enough, and they're not. You just can't knock them up in 2 hours.
Yeah, the problem with all petroleum products is it's not a local market; it's a global market. So,
and they shrink.
Yeah.
I saw this
store it.
morning natural gas is down almost 30% from where it was 6 weeks ago.
Mm.
And that's because of the warm weather in Europe.
So how are you guys? I mean, are you guys affected in a similar way? Have your energy price bills gone up?
Gasoline is the only thing that's
Triple?
really gone up.
Right.
I warm my property by burning tires, so.
In the States, I think a big problem is the fact there's so little understanding of the fact everybody gets all up in arms because all of a sudden the government's not going to allow them to drill oil in XYZ National Park. Well, and so we're buying oil elsewhere. But what they don't understand is we're not buying the crude oil, we're buying the processing.
Right.
And oil, because we don't have processors anymore in the United States that are capable of handling the volume of gasoline consumption that we have. We have to have that gasoline processed offshore until we go through the 10 or 12-year process of building new refineries.
Yeah, it's also the fact that the refineries don't actually use oil that is local. They don't use WTI. A lot of them are using oil that comes from Canada, the oil sands, because it's so cheap.
Yeah, they're going to go with the cheapest provider they can find.
It's a very heavy oil. It's a different.
Yeah, it's a whole different process. Yeah.
Right. So, and that's part of the problem with the processors is it's not like they have to get a specific kind of oil for their processes to work.
And I saw some journalist with the New York Times here about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, saying, well, the government should make these oil companies build new refineries. Well, first of all, you're talking about probably $35-40 billion to start. And that's going to be at a low-end production capability. And you're going to do this in a period of time when there is major push away from fossil fuels and into other fuels. I'm sorry, that ain't going to happen.
Why build a $40 billion plant when everyone wants EV vehicles by 2035?
Exactly.
Makes no sense.
Well, and some of the states are actually saying 2026.
Oh, God. Well, that'd be California, I bet.
Probably. But it's just there's very little understanding of the problem, and the other fact is very little understanding of what globalization has done to us. It has had good and bad effects, and the very fact that Russia's unwillingness, or I shouldn't say unwillingness, inability to ship as much gas as they used to affects an awful lot of countries on various parts of the globe.
Well, he actually just shut the gas off and sorry, guys.
Well,
you want to play like that?
There are a significant number of people who believe that a lot of their needs and wants and the way they think things should be done is all powered by hand wavium, where they just kind of just go do this. It's easy.
Hand wavium. I like
Texas,
that.
You look at Texas where, a refinery burns to the ground because it happens, they're dangerous places. And then they get told, well, you can't rebuild this because we've changed the environmental rules in the area. Okay, well, so you've effectively taken something offline with no way of replacing that. It's a huge problem in California with power generation. As they took power plants offline, they simply didn't build anymore and just kept buying more and more power from other states. And then those other states stopped giving them power because they weren't paying the bill. I mean, why would Colorado want to send all this electricity and water to California when California doesn't pay? They're like, well, we're the biggest economy in the country. It's like, well, that's great, but you still don't pay your bill.
Good. Build your own damn power plant.
Exactly. They have, well, how many? They have what, 3 nuclear reactors in San Diego that are sitting idle,
Yeah.
and they won't spin them up. You want to solve some of your problems, there you go. But there's too many people who want a magic solution that somehow it spontaneously creates baby ducks when you use it.
I'm going to have to rob that left-hand wavium.
Hand waving.
That's the jewel.
You're welcome. That's somebody else's problem, which is like politics generally.
Yeah.
It's real easy to say what you can't do and really hard to get what you can do or what's needed. I know, like in Lake Mead was having a problem with all these people on YouTube doing videos of the water levels and how they kept going down and down and down. And then they're finding bodies and all these wrecked boats and all this stuff at the bottom of the lakes. And Lake Mead's solution was to ban filming.
Perfect. There you go. Yeah. Oh my God.
It's just and they're like, well, it's not just us, it's all state parks. It's like, well, or all national parks or whatever. And yes, there has always been a rule in national parks that if you wanted to do film for commercial purposes, you needed a permit. The problem is they have decided that YouTubers are commercial process, and it's like, you understand that these YouTubers are basically people who go out and fish and ski and play on the lake and are sharing their stories and happen to get a little bit of money from Google for doing that. So my thought was, why not just set all of your Lake Mead videos to non-monetizable? Now you're not doing them for commercial reasons, and go right back out there. But yeah, those videos are fascinating.
Yeah. Not just what they find, just how far the water's gone.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
When
the water level.
Yeah. Well, they're standing on a sandbar pointing up 120 feet to where the water level used to be.
Where I'm sitting right now, we have over the last 60 days had 17 days without water. Because the Colorado River is down over 500 million gallons of flow per day. Over the time when we signed that agreement with the United States down here, that we would get everything that they didn't use for irrigation and consumption would be allowed to continue across the border, and we could use it. Well, now there's nothing but a puddle.
Yeah.
And
where's all the water gone?
Most over here, most of it.
A lot of it's gone because of a lack of rainfall and snowfall and that. But you
Sure.
also have a lot of it being used by, residential complexes being built in the middle of the desert in Nevada, and then they build a 1,000-acre lake.
Yeah.
Right.
So all the houses could have desert weather, but a lake in their front yard. And it's
Okay.
like, none of that should have ever been allowed.
Well, plus the
So
fact
someone somewhere
70%
said-
of the agriculture that feeds the country comes out of California.
Yep.
So there's an awful lot of water consumption.
Yeah. So there used to be a set of rules, obviously, that worked, and either those rules are being ignored now, or people are making new ones to say, well, dude, we need a vote on this so we can do this, and maybe we'll give you a few quid for getting it through and stuff like that. Not that I am kind of in any way like cynical about politicians and what they may or may not get up to, but it seems that there used to be a set of rules that worked that don't work anymore, right? Because otherwise, why would you have empty reservoirs like left, right, and centre, or kind of rivers not really flowing through with any output or throughput?
Well, in the United States, in the United States at least, the rules that used to exist were basically common sense, and we did not allow the huge mega corporations to decide what was, suddenly this desert land that is current value is $2 an acre is worth $200,000 per square mile as is. Okay, never mind putting a building on it, never mind bringing water to it. All we have to do is pledge that we're going to bring water to it, we're going to bring electricity to it, and we can sell this land for 1,000 times more. And I actually bought a piece of land like that in California probably 50 years ago. Based upon the promises that are still unfulfilled. Okay. They brought a road in, they paved the streets, they actually did the surveying of each individual plot, and there it sits. And 80% of those plots
in New Mexico.
80% of those plots are sold and worthless. And I dumped mine a year and a half into it because I saw, after a year and a half, they had made no effort and had not even pulled a permit. Screw this. I'm out.
I blame those marketers, It's all those marketers.
They ruin everything.
How can we make a buck?
Yeah, I think that's the problem now. It's all profit driven. That's how those decisions are made, Rob.
Back in the early 90s, when I was studying architecture and environment in New Mexico, we had put forth a whole bunch of proposals for the aqueducts in California and the Colorado River. The biggest issue with them is they're all in open dirt, open channel flows. It's like all of that needs to be concreted. All of that needed to have a roof over it to help reduce evaporation. And if you were going to put a roof on it, you might as well make it out of solar panels. And, we presented that back in the 90s, and they're like, oh, no, we don't need that. We have plenty of water. We have plenty of power. It's like, but look at your growth rate.
Right.
You won't have plenty of power. You won't have plenty of water if you continue at this rate. You need to start thinking about that now. And they said, well, that's future so-and-so's problem. Well,
not my problem, right?
Climate change being the variable
paying for it now.
none of them thought.
Or hand Williams.
Yeah, but climate change has a lot to do with it as well. There's a lot more drought there in those states than there was.
Well, for instance, the downside of the secondary effects of that drought, Terry, is look at all the wildfires we've had in California over the last decade. Those have a tremendous impact on water supply. Not because the hoses are pumping water at the fire, it's because of the erosion that takes place. And now that water no longer ends up in the reservoir. It ends up in the ocean, or it ends up in some ravine where there's no way to reclaim it. And it ends up getting soaked into some desert that it didn't used to flow to because of erosion. So, there's a lot of trickle-down effects. And again, you got to bring some critical thinking to the game if you really want to try to understand this shit. And nobody wants to because there's profit to be made.
Yeah, well, 20 years ago when they were making those laws, no one thought about climate change.
Well, no, but I don't think that climate change is that. I don't think it's the majority of the cause for our water shortage. Population growth is certainly an aspect. Climate change is an aspect, but I think a much huger aspect is the utilization of what we've got. There's no control on it.
Well, and the fact that they're living in desert and they try and have a green grass lawn, water it every day, all that kind of nonsense.
I mean, we have it here to a degree as well. As the people build on floodplains. Am I right, Simon?
Oh, yeah.
And then suddenly, what happens? The area floods, and all these houses are underwater. And then they're all like, "What happened there? Then what are we going to do? How are we going to do this?" They say, "Well, it's a fucking floodplain, mate."
And they rebuild, in the
Yeah.
same place.
Yeah.
They rebuild in the same place, yes.
Yeah.
And the United States, they pay them to do it. Yeah. I never understood that. Why an insurance company, will allow people to rebuild on a floodplain.
On a floodplain, yeah.
Here's your money, go build it where you're not going to get your feet wet every spring.
Yeah.
We're at the top of the hour, folks. Have a fun discussion.
It was a fun discussion.
Sorry, I won't do it again.
Good, nice to see you all, guys.
That's a classic, Steve.
That's very good. Yeah, I think I'm going to use that a few times. I'm off to see my parents in a bit, and I'm going to do a bit of that. Yeah. Have a nice evening, guys. See you later.
Take care, Robert.
Take
Bye.
care.